The aircraft hummed steadily as I settled into my window seat, grateful for the relatively empty flight. I was returning from a business conference in Chicago, exhausted from 3 days of presentations and networking. All I wanted was to close my eyes and forget about quarterly projections and market analyses. Just as I began to doze off, a woman slid into the seat beside me. I opened my eyes briefly, offering a polite nod. She was striking, elegant in a way that spoke of careful grooming and expensive taste. Her perfume was subtle but distinctive, and her hands trembled slightly as she buckled her seatbelt. "Excuse me," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I know this is going to sound absolutely insane, but, are you Arman Khalil?" My stomach tightened. Something about her tone made every instinct scream danger. "Yes. Do I know you?" She turned to face me fully, her eyes red-rimmed as if she'd been crying recently. "No, we've never met. But I know your wife, Sana. And you need to know that she's been having an affair with my husband, David." The words hung in the air between us like poison gas. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. The cabin pressure seemed to increase tenfold, pressing against my chest. "What did you just say?" "I'm Elena," she continued, pulling out her phone with shaking hands. "I found out 3 weeks ago. Text messages, hotel receipts, everything. When I confronted David, he finally admitted it. Said it had been going on for about 8 months. She showed me her phone screen. There were screenshots of messages, intimate, familiar exchanges that made my blood run cold. One message from a number saved as S. Read, "Missing you already. Last night was beautiful. D makes me feel alive again." That could be anyone, I managed to say, though my voice sounded hollow even to my own ears. Elena swiped to another screenshot, this one a photo David had apparently saved. It was unmistakably Sana, lying in bed, her dark hair spread across a pillow I didn't recognize, wearing a smile I hadn't seen in years. The intimacy of the image was undeniable. "I'm so sorry," Elena said, and genuine sympathy filled her voice. "I debated whether to tell you. I've been following you on social media. I know that sounds creepy, but I needed to know who you were, what kind of man's life my husband was helping to destroy. When I saw you'd be on this flight, I bought a ticket. I couldn't just send a message or call. You deserved to hear this face to face." My mind raced through the past months, searching for signs I'd missed. Sana's late nights at the community center. Her new interest in yoga classes. The way she'd become distant during dinner, always checking her phone. I'd attributed it to stress from her volunteer work, her endless compassion for everyone else leaving her drained. How did they meet? I heard myself ask. At some charity fundraiser. David's company was sponsoring it. Sana was organizing volunteers. Elena laughed bitterly. Isn't that ironic? She was there helping others, and instead, she found my husband. The flight attendant's voice crackled through the speakers, announcing our imminent departure. I felt trapped, suspended between earth and sky, between ignorance and knowledge, between the man I was an hour ago and whoever I was becoming now. "What are you going to do?" I asked Elena. "I've already filed for divorce," she said quietly. 22 years of marriage, gone. Our daughters are devastated. David keeps saying it meant nothing, that he loves me, but how can I believe anything he says now? I stared out the window as the plane began to taxi. Below, the airport lights blurred into streaks of white and gold. Somewhere down there was the life I thought I knew, the home I shared with Sana, the routines we'd built over 12 years together, the future we'd planned. "Thank you," I finally said to Elena, though the words tasted like ash. "I know this couldn't have been easy for you." She reached over and squeezed my hand briefly. We didn't deserve this. Either of us. As the plane lifted off, leaving the ground behind, I realized I was leaving something else behind too. The comfortable illusion that love and loyalty were enough to protect a marriage from the slow erosion of neglect and unspoken needs. The flight seemed endless. Elena and I spoke intermittently, sharing the strange intimacy of two people united by betrayal. She showed me more evidence, credit card statements from hotels, receipts from restaurants Sana had never mentioned visiting. Each piece felt like a small blade, cutting away at the foundation of everything I'd believed. "Tell me about her," Elena said at one point. "Help me understand what kind of woman does this." I leaned back, closing my eyes. Where did I even begin to explain Sana? "She's the most compassionate person I've ever known," I said, and the irony wasn't lost on either of us. When we first met, I was volunteering at a soup kitchen. She was there every weekend, knew everyone's names, their stories. She remembered birthdays of homeless regulars, brought them specific foods they'd mentioned liking. Elena listened quietly as I continued. After we married, it only intensified. She worked as a social worker, but that wasn't enough. She volunteered at women's shelters, organized clothing drives, spent hours counseling teenagers in crisis. Our house was always open. People came to her with their problems, their heartbreaks, their emergencies. "That sounds exhausting," Elena observed. It was. For both of us. I opened my eyes, staring at the seat back in front of me. I used to joke that she was everyone's savior except her own. She'd come home depleted, emotionally wrung out from carrying everyone else's burdens. I'd suggest she take a break, focus on herself, on us. She'd agree, then get a call from someone in crisis and disappear again. Did you resent it? The question cut deep because I'd never wanted to admit the answer. Sometimes. Is that terrible? She was doing genuinely good work, helping people who desperately needed it. How could I be the selfish husband complaining that she didn't have enough left for me? Elena shook her head. It's not selfish to want your wife to be present in your marriage. Over the years, we became roommates who occasionally had dinner together. She'd talk about the shelter residents, the families she was helping, the grants she was writing. I'd talk about work. We stopped talking about us. We stopped dreaming together, planning together, laughing together. I remembered our last anniversary, just 2 months ago. We'd gone to dinner at an expensive restaurant. Her choice, an attempt to be thoughtful. But halfway through the meal, she'd gotten a call from one of her shelter clients in crisis. She'd spent 20 minutes in the restaurant lobby, coaching the woman through a panic attack. The food had gone cold. I'd sat alone, watching other couples hold hands and gaze at each other, wondering when we'd lost that. When was the last time she really looked at you? Elena asked softly. I mean, really saw you, asked how you were doing, what you were feeling. The question paralyzed me because I couldn't remember. Months. A year. Longer. David said something to me during one of our fights, Elena continued. He said Sana understood him, that she listened in a way I supposedly didn't anymore. It made me furious because I've spent 2 decades listening to him complain about his job, his stress, his problems. But apparently, that wasn't the right kind of listening. What is the right kind? I asked. I think it's the kind where you're not exhausted from giving yourself to everyone else first. The kind where you still have emotional energy to actually be present. She paused. Maybe Sana was so depleted from saving everyone else that when David showed up offering to save her for once, she couldn't resist. The thought lodged in my chest like a splinter. Was that it? Had Sana, in her endless compassion for others, neglected herself so completely that David's attention felt like water in a desert? The messages between them, Elena said, pulling out her phone again. Look at this one. She showed me a text from David to Sana. You give so much to everyone. Let me give something to you for once. Let me take care of you. And Sana's response, I've forgotten what that feels like. Thank you for reminding me I'm not just a resource to be depleted. I felt something crack inside me. Anger, yes, but also a terrible recognition. How many times had I watched Sana give herself away in pieces, never stopping to ask if anyone was replenishing her? How many times had I been too tired from my own day to notice she was running on empty? I failed her, I said quietly. No, Elena said firmly. She made a choice. We both made choices in our marriages. Maybe we could have been better partners. But they made the choice to betray us. That's on them. The plane shuddered through turbulence, and I gripped the armrest. Everything felt unstable now. Not just the aircraft but the entire architecture of my life. I didn't call Sana from the airport. I needed to see her face, watch her reactions, gauge the truth in real time. The Uber ride home felt surreal, familiar streets suddenly foreign, as if I was returning to a movie set of my life rather than the genuine article. Our house looked the same. The porch light was on, casting its warm glow across the garden Sana had planted last spring. I could see movement through the kitchen window, her silhouette as she moved about, probably preparing dinner even though I'd told her not to wait up. I stood on the porch for a long moment, key in hand, knowing that once I crossed this threshold, nothing would ever be the same. Then I opened the door. Arman. Sana appeared from the kitchen, smiling that reflexive smile she'd perfected over years of greeting people warmly. You're home earlier than I expected. How was the flight? She moved to hug me, but I stepped back. The smile faltered. We need to talk, I said, setting down my bag. Something in my tone must have warned her because the color drained from her face. What's wrong? I met someone on the plane today. Elena, David's wife. Sana's legs seemed to give out. She grabbed the back of the sofa for support, her knuckles white. Oh God. That's all you have to say. Oh God. Arman, please. 8 months, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. 8 months you've been sleeping with him. 8 months of lies, of sneaking around, of betraying everything we built together. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Sorry you did it or sorry you got caught. Both. Neither. I don't know. She sank onto the sofa, her whole body shaking. I never meant for this to happen. I laughed, a harsh sound that hurt my throat. No one ever means for it to happen. It just happens, right? You just accidentally fell onto another man's bed repeatedly for 8 months. Don't, she whispered. Please don't. But I couldn't stop. The anger I'd been containing since Elena's revelation poured out. Do you have any idea what it felt like, seeing those messages? Seeing that photo of you in his bed, looking happier than you've looked with me in years. I do love you, Sana said desperately. I never stopped loving you. You have a fascinating way of showing it. I was drowning. The words burst out of her with sudden force. I was drowning, Arman, and I didn't know how to tell you. Everyone needed something from me. The shelter, the community center, my clients, our families. Everyone had problems I was supposed to fix, crises I was supposed to manage. And I did it. I fixed everything for everyone. She stood up, pacing now, words tumbling out in a rush. But I was empty. Completely empty. I'd come home and you'd ask about my day and I'd start to tell you, but I could see your eyes glaze over. You were tired too. Everyone was tired. So I learned to just smile and say fine and keep going. That doesn't justify. I'm not justifying it, she shouted, then lowered her voice. I'm not. What I did was wrong. Unforgivably wrong. But you asked how it happened, and I'm trying to explain. I sat down heavily, suddenly exhausted beyond measure. So David showed up and what? Rescued you. He saw me, Sana said softly. At that fundraiser. I was running around, managing everything, making sure everyone else was happy. Afterward, he found me in the kitchen, and I was just breaking down, crying over a broken champagne glass like it was the end of the world. He helped me clean it up. He asked if I was okay. And when I said I was fine, he said, "No, you're not. And that's okay." She wiped her eyes, mascara streaking her cheeks. We started talking. Just talking, at first. He'd text to ask how I was doing. He'd listen when I complained about how tired I was. He never needed me to fix anything for him, he just wanted to know me. The actual me, not the version that helps everyone else. And somewhere in all that talking, you decided to sleep with him. Sana flinched. It happened gradually. Coffee turned into lunch. Lunch turned into longer conversations. One day he kissed me, and I kissed him back, and it felt like coming up for air after being underwater too long. Do you love him? The question hung between us. Sana looked at me for a long moment, and I saw the truth before she spoke it. I don't know. Maybe. But I love you more. I've always loved you more. Then how could you do this? Because loving you wasn't enough to fix what was broken in me. And I didn't know how to fix it, so I tried to fill the emptiness with someone who made me feel less empty. The next few days passed in a fog. Sana moved into the guest room without my asking. We circled each other in the house like polite strangers, exchanging necessary words about bills and schedules, avoiding anything real. I called in sick to work, something I never did. I sat in our bedroom, my bedroom now, staring at photos on the dresser. Our wedding day, both of us radiant with hope. Vacation in Costa Rica, Sana laughing as waves crashed around her ankles. Last Christmas, posed smiles that I now recognized as hollow. When had we stopped being real with each other? When had performance replaced presence? Sana knocked on the door the third evening. Can I come in? I nodded, not trusting my voice. She sat on the edge of the bed, maintaining distance. She looked terrible, eyes swollen, hair unwashed, wearing the same clothes as yesterday. For once, she wasn't taking care of everyone else. She wasn't even taking care of herself. I ended it, she said quietly. Called David, told him it was over. Blocked his number. Elena deserves better, and so do you. Is that supposed to make me feel better? No. Nothing I can do will make this better. But I wanted you to know. She picked at a thread on the bedspread. I've also resigned from the shelter board and put in notice at the community center. That surprised me. Why? Because you were right. I gave everything to everyone else and had nothing left for us, for me. I need to figure out who I am when I'm not constantly saving people. Her voice cracked. I need to figure out how to save myself. I studied her face, really looked at her for the first time in months. She seemed smaller somehow, diminished. The woman who'd always been so strong, so capable, so endlessly compassionate, looked fragile and lost. And despite everything, despite the betrayal and the hurt, I felt something shift inside me. I forgive you, I said. Sana's head snapped up, eyes wide. What? I forgive you. Not because what you did was okay. It wasn't. Not because I understand completely. I don't. But because holding on to this anger will destroy me more than it already has. Because you're a human being who made a terrible mistake, and I can't let that mistake define the rest of my life. Tears streamed down her face. Thank you. God, Amen, thank you. I'll do anything to fix this. Counseling, therapy, whatever you want. I'll spend the rest of my life making this up to you. Sana. I waited until she looked at me. I forgive you, but I can't stay married to you. The hope that had flickered in her eyes died instantly. What? But you just said. I forgive you, but forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. Forgiveness is for me, so I can move forward without this poison eating me alive. But moving forward means moving on. Please, she whispered. Please don't do this. I love you. I made a horrible mistake, but I love you. I believe you. But love isn't enough. It never was. I stood up, putting distance between us. We broke long before David came into the picture. Maybe we've been broken for years, and we just didn't want to admit it. We can fix it. We can go to counseling, learn to communicate better, rebuild. Sana, when was the last time you wanted to come home to me? Not out of obligation or routine, but genuine desire to be in my presence. She opened her mouth, then closed it. The silence was answer enough. When was the last time I made you laugh? Really laugh, not the polite chuckle you give when you're being nice. I continued. When was the last time we stayed up talking about our dreams instead of our problems? When was the last time we made love and it felt like connection instead of obligation? That doesn't mean we can't get those things back, she said desperately. Maybe we could. With years of work, with therapy, with both of us fundamentally changing who we've become. But Sana, I don't want to. The truth of it settled over me as I spoke. I'm tired. I'm so tired of trying to make something work that's been dying for years. The affair didn't kill our marriage, it just revealed how dead it already was. 2 months later, I stood in my driveway, watching the moving truck pull away with half our furniture. The divorce papers had been filed. Sana had found an apartment across town. We'd divided everything with surprising civility, both of us numb to the process. She'd fought the divorce initially, begging for couples counseling, for another chance, for time to prove she could change. But I'd held firm, and eventually, she'd accepted it. She'd started therapy on her own, she told me during one of our last conversations. Working through why she'd spent so many years depleting herself for others, trying to understand what she was really running from. I hope you find whatever you're looking for, I told her, and I meant it. Elena and I had coffee once, a strange meeting between two people bonded by betrayal. Her divorce from David was nearly final too. She looked lighter somehow, despite the circumstances. How are you doing? She'd asked. Better than I expected. You? The same. It's odd, I thought losing my marriage would destroy me. But actually, I feel relieved. Like I've been holding my breath for years and can finally exhale. I understood exactly what she meant. Standing in the driveway now, I felt the spring breeze on my face and realized I felt something similar. Not happiness exactly, but a kind of quiet peace. The house behind me held 12 years of memories, some beautiful, many mundane, some painful. But they were just memories now, not chains binding me to a past that couldn't be recovered. My phone buzzed. A text from James, my college roommate. Poker night Friday? Been too long, man. I smiled and typed back, I'm in. When was the last time I'd spent an evening with friends, doing something just because I wanted to? When had I stopped having a life outside the hollow routine my marriage had become? I thought about Sana sometimes, wondered how she was doing in her new apartment, whether she'd found a healthier balance in her life. I hoped she had. Despite everything, I didn't wish her harm. The anger had faded, leaving behind something that felt almost like compassion, not for the woman who'd betrayed me, but for the woman who'd lost herself so completely that she'd sought salvation in all the wrong places. I'd lost myself too, I realized. Somewhere in the years of comfortable routine and unspoken resentments, I'd forgotten who I was beyond being Sana's husband. What did I like? What did I want? Who was Arman Khalil when he wasn't defined by a failing marriage? I was starting to find out. I'd taken up running again, something I'd abandoned years ago when life got too busy. I'd joined a book club, started learning guitar, planned a solo trip to Iceland I'd been postponing for a decade. Small things, but they felt revolutionary, choosing myself, my interests, my growth, without guilt or apology. A neighbor walked by with her dog, waving cheerfully. Beautiful day, isn't it? It really is, I replied, and meant it. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. I thought about Elena's words on that plane, how she'd taken a chance on telling me the truth even though it meant revisiting her own pain. That conversation had shattered my world, but it had also freed me from living a lie. Sometimes destruction is necessary for rebuilding. Sometimes endings are actually beginnings in disguise. I went back inside, closing the door on the empty driveway. The house was quiet but not lonely. There was a difference, I was learning. Loneliness was what I'd felt in a marriage where neither person truly saw the other. This quiet was simply space, space to breathe, to think, to become. My phone buzzed again. This time, an email notification about the Iceland trip I'd booked. 3 weeks in a country I'd never visited, doing things I'd only dreamed about. Old Arman would have cancelled, found some reason why it was impractical or irresponsible. New Arman was going. I pulled out my laptop and opened a blank document. For years, I'd thought about writing, stories, essays, anything creative, but had never made time. Too busy, I'd always said. Too busy maintaining a marriage that was already over, apparently. I started typing, not sure where it would lead, just letting words flow. It felt like learning to breathe again after years of shallow breaths. Forgiveness, I typed, is not the same as reconciliation. You can forgive someone and still choose to walk away. You can release your anger without erasing your boundaries. You can wish someone well while recognizing they can't be part of your future. I thought of Sana, probably in her apartment, maybe making similar discoveries about herself. I hoped she was finding her way, learning to fill herself up instead of depleting herself for others. I hoped she'd find someone who saw her, who cherished her, who met her halfway. But that someone wasn't me. Couldn't be me. We'd both changed too much, hurt too deeply, grown in directions that no longer intersected. And that was okay. The hardest lesson I'd learned over these past months was that love alone isn't enough to sustain a marriage. You also need presence, attention, intention, effort. You need to choose each other daily, not out of obligation but genuine desire. You need to see and be seen, know and be known. Sana and I had stopped choosing each other long before David entered the picture. We'd been two people living parallel lives, occasionally intersecting but never truly meeting. The affair had just made the inevitable undeniable. I saved the document and closed my laptop, feeling lighter than I had in years. Outside, the last rays of sunlight faded into twilight. Tomorrow, I'd wake up in this house, my house now, and decide what I wanted to do with the day. Not what needed to be done, not what someone else required, but what brought me joy. It felt radical. It felt right. My phone lit up one more time. A text from an unknown number. Hi Armin, this is Rachel from the book club. A few of us are getting coffee Sunday morning if you'd like to join. I looked at the message for a long moment, then typed, I'd love to. What time? New beginnings don't announce themselves with fanfare. They start quietly, with small choices to move forward instead of staying stuck. They start with forgiveness, of others, of yourself, of circumstances you can't control. They start with the recognition that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is let go. I had loved Sana. Maybe part of me always would. But I loved myself more now, enough to know I deserved a life that was fully lived, not half survived. Enough to walk away from what was broken instead of spending years trying to fix something that was fundamentally incompatible. As I turned off the lights and headed upstairs, I felt something I hadn't felt in years, anticipation for tomorrow. Not anxiety or dread, but genuine curiosity about what came next. The woman on the plane had given me a terrible gift, the truth. And though it had hurt beyond measure, though it had cost me my marriage and upended my life, I was grateful. Because now, finally, I was free to become whoever I was meant to be. And that was worth everything.